Hello all my beauty explorers, welcome back to another episode of Beauty Explored. It's your girl Marie DC, and in today's episode I will be talking about my convert story to Islam. So we're going to get a little personal today. Stick around to the end if you want to know how I became a Muslim. So today I decided to get a little personal about my journey to Islam. It's a rather interesting one because even when I think about how I got here, it's almost like God was guiding me here, you know? Okay, so my family originally were Catholic. And I remember asking my mom at the age of 6 or 7, I remember asking her, how did we all get on the planet, and how did the planet get here, and where did the trees and the grass come from? And she said, God. And I looked at her and I said, who's God? And she looked at me like astonished, like what that looked like. How does she not know about God? So I remember we were sitting in my room when I asked her this, and she got up and she said, hold on one second. She got up and she went to the next room. And she came back with the Bible in her hand. And she said, all the answers are in this book. All you have to do is practice how to read it. And so I started to read the book. I got through, I believe, the first 3 chapters of the book. Initially, what she had read to me was that everything came to be because of God. It took 7 days to make the everything on earth, all the animals, and on the Sabbath he rested, and he talked about Adam and Eve. Well, anyways, it wasn't too long after that she had started taking me to Catholic church, and every Sunday I would go to Sunday school. And this nun in her full nun uniform, her head wrap and her dress, she would come pick me up every Sunday to take me to and from Catholic church. And then I was supposed to do my communion. I did this for a really long time, and until I was ready to do my communion. And then right when I was going to do my communion, family caught some sort of beef or whatever. I don't know what was going on. There was always fighting in my family. So they took it out on us, and so I wasn't able to do my communion. But I continued reading the Bible on my own, trying to figure out just God, who this God person was. And being such a young mind, I didn't really fully grasp the whole ideology of it. Yes, you can say, being a Catholic, I learned about the Old Testament a lot. It wasn't until I turned 15 or 16 that I came across Christianity. And the way I came across Christianity was through a group of friends that I had. I just felt like lost. There's all this evil out in the world, and I had suffered abuse and all that, and trauma already by that time. And so I was yearning for God. I was looking for him. And it wasn't until I met a bunch of kids in the new school that I went to that they started teaching me about Christianity. And I was like, oh wait, you don't have to say our fathers and all this stuff? He's like, no, you just talk to God like you're talking to a friend. And I was like, talk to God like you're talking to a friend? You can do that? They're like, yeah, he's always with you. God wants you to have a deeper personal relationship with him and a connection with him. And I was like, wow, really? And they're like, yeah, we can see your hurt and we can see your suffering. Let us take you to this Christian church that we go to or whatever. And I was like, okay, cool. So I went to the church with them, and because they have the sermon before the prayer. They have they read the Bible, they explain what that section of the Bible means and how it applies to life, and then they go into prayer, and they're like, whoever wants healing, whoever wants to be reborn, just come to the altar, whatever. And I was like, okay, I was feeling that. I was like, wow. So I went down and they started praying in tongue for me, and I just started bawling, out of nowhere. Just started bawling. I was so moved by this. I felt oh my God, this is what I've been searching for. This is God. So So I became a Christian at the age of 16. And then I wasn't a practicing Christian. I ended up moving around a lot. So I ended up losing those friends, losing contact with that church that I went to, wherever, and just going about my life struggling. And like, at least this time I knew that, you know, I can just talk to God and He'll hear me and He'll listen to my prayers. So it wasn't until I turned 22 that my older brother brought me, my mom, and my friend at the time to a Christian church. My friend became a Christian, my mom became a Christian, my brother became a Christian, but I was reborn again for the second time. So, and in that church, it was like a really, really big church somewhere in like North Florida or something, I forgot. And it just didn't seem personal to me. I didn't feel any connection with anybody there. I didn't feel a connection with the pastor there. And I was actually, like, my friend ended up still going to that church. My brother stopped going. My mom continued to go to that church, but I stopped going. So I strayed off of that and I continued to live my life. I really strayed away from God around that time. I was so hurt and in pain and going through so much in my life that I can't even talk about it. I don't even want to talk about that time. I just want to forget it. So from 26 to like 30, I was just picking the pieces of my life back up, trying to get my life back together. I turned 31 where I was reborn again. And when I was reborn again, this time it wasn't pressure to come to the altar to be saved. This time it was like in a hip-hop church that I had gone to. And it's so weird because this church, when I lived in Miami Springs, I used to hear music, hip-hop music, and I was like, who keeps throwing a house party? I didn't know that this was a church I would end up going to. And another friend of mine had taken me to this church once. I was like, oh, this was the church that they were playing the music at. But then they stopped everything to pray, and I was like, oh, I'm not down with this. I can't do this right now. So I kind of just left and never went back. But then I found it again, and I was like, this is God leading me, telling me where to go. This is where I started learning about God and the New Testament and Jesus. But I was also like still going out and not living to my full potential, to like not being as good as I know that I could be for God. But I was building and developing this relationship with Him, but this time I was recovering from hurt, and I was like still on the fence of being good and doing bad. But I was doing much better than I had been the previous years of my life. And it got to a point where one time I had went out and I was like in this bar/lounge type of place, and I remember going to the bathroom and this lady handing me a card for a masjid, and she had a hijab on, and it was a masjid called Al Ansar, and it was in Wingwood in Northwest 7th Ave. I didn't think anything of it. I just thought it was weird, but I did put the card in my back pocket. A couple of weeks later, a month or two later, I know it was a little while later, we got into this lecture and this Bible study, and I don't know what came to be, but this was after the lady giving me that card. I don't know how this conversation came to be. I don't know what possessed me to ask this question, but I think he began to talk about the Trinity, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost. And he was talking about the story in the Bible of where they went to capture Jesus. Jesus, right before they captured him, he went to pray up on the mountain to God. And I sat there and I was like, wait a minute. If Jesus is God, why does he need to pray to himself? Why why does he need to pray to God if he's got, like, it just confused me. It was just like shocked that I was even asking these questions, and he just kept telling me that we'll get to it. And no matter how many ways they tried to decipher that question that I had or answer that, it just didn't make sense to me. I don't know why I asked this, but I was like, but what do Muslims believe? And he looked at me and he was like, nah, don't worry about that. You don't want to mess with that religion. He didn't want to get into details about what being a Muslim was. So I was just like, okay, I guess we'll just forget about it. I just continued to focus on my relationship with God. I continued to read the New Testament. I continued to go to church every Sunday and Bible studies every Thursday or Friday or whatever it was. I just continued to just try to build that relationship with God until I left the church and I moved to Georgia. And when I moved to Georgia, I had met someone who was a Muslim, and that would be the person that I'm married to today. He started telling me about Islam, and so instead of believing his word, I got to studying and researching on my own, and I ended up working at this Al Farouk Masjid in Atlanta, Georgia, for the elementary school that was next door to them. And that's where I devoted myself to become Muslima. And that was back in 2015, March 2015. And ever since then, I've just been on my path to understanding what it is to be a Muslim. It's a very spiritual path. It's a very devoted path, and it's the reason why I'm trying to wear more of my hijab. I'm not sitting here telling you that I'm a complete hijabi, that I wear my hijab all the time, but I try to make an effort to put it on. I just, continue to try to build and develop that relationship with God. That's all I want, is to know God. At the end of the day, I may have become a Catholic, a Christian, and a Muslim throughout my lifetime. I felt more of a spiritual connection, not only to God, but also to the environment, to my surroundings, to other people when I became Muslim. And one of the happiest times of my life was working at that school in Al Farouk when I worked there. I was dedicating my life to Allah, inshallah, and I've been trying to do it ever since. Now, please understand that this journey isn't one that I took lightly. It's not one that I just decided one day I woke up and I'm like, oh, I'm gonna be, a Muslima. No, this is a journey that God has been guiding me down for a very long time. This is something that I take really, really seriously, and it's a work in progress. But the relationship that I'm developing with Allah is between me and Allah. Thank you so much for listening to my story. And until next time, I'll see you in the next video. Make sure to stick around and watch more videos. Thank you for your time, and love and light. Peace.